Welcome to another edition of Knights of the Roundtable. Now, normally we're talking basketball, but today I've chained the chairs down and the couches because we're going to talk wrestling. And I've watched a little bit of Monday Night Raw. And with joining us today is Rick Fletcher, head wrestling coach Cory Baker, and freshman wrestler Heather Crull. Everybody, welcome.
Thank you.
Before we get started, my guess is this is going to be nothing like Monday Night Raw. Am I right, guys?
Just some minor similarities.
All right, so Cory's here and Heather's here. They're going to educate us here today because we absolutely know nothing about wrestling. So this is going to be an experience for all of us. So welcome both of you. We're glad to have you here.
Thank you for having us.
So anyways, I'll get started.
All right, you start right off, Rick.
Okay. Okay, Cory. First of all, tell us some of the players on your squad, your coaches, and who are your seniors. Let's start there.
Absolutely, yeah. So our team's very young this year. I think probably we have 17 wrestlers, and I haven't done the math, but I think probably 10 or 11 are freshmen. So very young, which is a great thing.
Yeah.
We're very happy about that. Our team for the last 5 or 6 years has been somewhere in the range of 6 to 10 wrestlers. So to have 17 is a phenomenal thing.
Sounds like a good number.
Yeah, we're happy to have that. But we still have some good senior leadership. Jackson Ramsey, our only four-year senior we have this year. He's a multiple-time conference sectional champion, so good to have some leadership like that. Also getting back some seniors like Clayton Gray, who wasn't able to wrestle last year. Really excited about Damon Wilson, who's never wrestled before as a senior, but a phenomenal athlete. Coach Crull and I, my assistant coach, are really excited to see what he's going to do when we go live here. And then just to highlight, Calvin Berhalter, our heavyweight, is probably a favorite in the conference and sectionals to be up there. And then other than that, we have our freshmen like Heather. And then we have probably about another 8 or 9. The nice thing about our team is that we've had a youth program for the last 7 or 8 years. So a lot of these kids that are freshmen have been wrestling with us for 6 or 7 years even.
Yeah, you guys do a great job of keeping everybody up to date. I'm on your Facebook pages all the time, and I get the notifications of what's going on and what's happening as far as the youth programs and your high school programs. So you mentioned some of those names. I recognize, like Jackson was a cross-country runner, I believe, so he's got experience going a long ways with that cross-country team. And I noticed Damon's a football player, Calvin's a football player. So my thoughts with wrestling was, if you're a football player and if you don't have a sport in the winter, wrestling would be the thing to do. So talk a little bit about that.
Absolutely. That's something we've always pushed. And you can find it from professional football players or former professional football players where they talk about how much wrestling helped them. I mean, a few years ago, a top 5 Iowa team had an offensive line that was all state champion wrestlers, and the things that, especially in football, but in just about any other sport, the things you do in wrestling are going to translate over. Footwork, agility, quickness, things like that, but also just the grind that wrestling is. It's gonna teach you toughness. It's something that you really it takes a lot of mental fortitude to do, and so that will help you in any sport you're going to do.
I would imagine your practices can get competitive and they're strenuous. Okay, you're not just a lot of sitting around doing nothing. My guess is a lot of physical activity, because it takes a lot to do that. Wrestle. In those periods there.
Absolutely, wrestling practice has very little downtime.
Yeah.
A wrestling match is only 6 minutes long, but it's probably the longest 6 minutes of your life if you go the full distance. You'll get done, and you feel like your arms cannot go above your waist. And so, in order to do that, we need to be wrestling for 10, 15 minutes straight to get kids ready to be for 6 minutes plus maybe overtime, things like that. So wrestling practice, yes, very little downtime. Get your drink and let's get back. We try to drill or condition nonstop for about 2 hours.
So this morning we are very privileged to have Heather here. Now, Heather, okay, obviously let's state the obvious. You are a girl in a male-dominated sport. So tell me about that right there and how that. And what year are you, by the way?
I'm a freshman.
All right. So tell me about are you the only girl on the team?
Technically, yeah.
Technically, okay. So tell us about that being a female in a male-dominated sport.
Of course, it's hard because the other teams, they're always underestimating me, and thinking it's just a girl, she's gonna be easy. But I always end up trying my best, usually beating them because I've been wrestling for a very long time.
How long have you been wrestling?
This is 9th year.
9th year. That's
Yeah.
a lot, and you're only a freshman.
Yeah.
So did you come up through the Northeastern program, or are there other programs available?
I started in Hagerstown program.
Okay.
And I came over to Northeastern's program.
Okay.
Been with us for probably 6 or 7 years, I think, at this point. It's been a while. So her
Yeah.
dad Todd who's my assistant coach now,
Right.
has been a big part of our youth program, our middle school program for years. So they've been with us for a while. But yeah, Heather's been a very dominant force in our Northeastern community. For a while.
Well, you guys do have a pretty active middle school program, and I do see that going on. And that's what it's a feeder program, just like any other sport. You have to have your feeder program that you can put kids into. Do you have a youth program before middle school, or is there something that you're doing there?
Absolutely. So that's where most of these kids have been wrestling for a while started. We have a club program. Right now it's being run by Justin Stevens.
Okay.
Dwayne White ran it for many years. Todd, my assistant coach, helped out with that as well. But yeah, it's a K through 6, depending on where we're going club wise, things like that. But yeah, we started them very young. So this year I think we have about close to 40 wrestlers in that right now. We just are getting that season started. I think they might be wrestling today.
Okay.
But that's really where it starts for us. And we all use the same facilities, and we use the same coaching staff, all the way through. So it's one continuous thing for us.
Heather, here's a question. What motivated you to start wrestling?
I would say family wrestling is what got me started, and then I just kind of fell in love with it.
You have brothers and sisters that wrestled also?
I'm the oldest. It was my dad and my cousins that started
Okay.
wrestling.
So in family get-togethers, did we have a wrestling meet break out and Dad had to come in and break it up, or
Not
no?
really.
All right.
Who gets the best seat at the Thanksgiving meal dinner table is what we really want to know. You have that advantage going there. I'm impressed. No, I really am. And you're gonna wrestle boys, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they don't. My guess is with what you explained earlier before, Cory, is they don't do boys wrestling and girls wrestling. It's all in one.
Yeah, there's some events that are tailored for girls only, but 98% of what she's going to wrestle this year are going to be boys, and that's nothing new to her. I mean, she does wrestle girl only events, but you were second in middle school state in the boys division last year,
Yep.
and first in the girls. So yeah, it's nothing new for Heather. She's not too worried about that. Some boys are worried right now. But
So, how many weight classes are there in wrestling?
14.
14 weight classes. Now, are they broken down into like increments of 7 pounds, or is it sort of vary?
It's a little bit random. We start at 106, and then they do go for 7 for there. But then when you get bigger, you can go 10, 12 pounds. And then when you get into the heavier divisions, we go from 195 to 220, to where heavyweight is from 220 to 285. So there's some divisions there as you get into the bigger weight
And
classes.
so, Heather, I take it you're not in the heavyweight division.
No.
Maybe next year.
Or next year you're going. So what weight class are you look like you're going to be in?
106 and 113.
106, 113. Well, good. Now, what's the lightweight? What's the lightest?
106 is the lightest weight.
106 is the lightest.
Yeah.
Now, of the matches, or the meets, I should say, that I've watched in the past in the middle school, my 2 favorites are the lightweight and the heavyweight. That's my 2, because the lightweight, I mean, they get at it. I mean, they're out there. I mean, it's quickness and you're getting at it. And then the heavyweights is like just brute strength going at each other. And those are my favorites. And last year, until last year, I've never seen a wrestling meet. But it was quite interesting in just the thought process that goes into, do you want up, do you want down, and it's just, there's a lot into it. Keep them inside the circle, don't let them crawl their way out and stuff like that. And, and you get your opponent in a, can't think of what it's called, when you're about ready to pin them, and you hold them there, and then they get out, and then you get points for an almost pin, and then you have reversals and
Yep.
all this stuff, all this lingo that I have no idea what it means, but I got the lingo.
That's what's funny for us as coaches. For Todd and I, Todd a little bit longer than me, but we've both been doing this for, since we were in high school, if not earlier. And so we forget that not everyone's just completely up to speed. So like we had to even stop practicing. We got a lot of first year wrestlers. We got to tell them what words mean and what you want to do when the match starts, things like that. We've been going over moves and situations. So yeah, but there's a lot a lot more technical things about wrestling than people realize. That's something that when I first got into wrestling in high school, I didn't realize. I expected to walk in for steel chairs and power bombs, but no. It's much more of it's a scoring sport, which a lot of people don't realize. Takedowns, you score points. Escapes, you score points. Near fall, like what you talked about, where you almost pin them, you get the back exposed, but you don't pin them. All those things score points. You're constantly just trying to accumulate points. And then, if you pin them, great, match is over, you win right away. But we like to develop technical wrestlers. Brute strength doesn't always just get it done.
So let's talk overtime. Since it is a point scoring meet, what about, how does overtime go? If we're tied at the end of regulation at 8-8, what happens?
We're going to go straight back up to neutral. We're both standing, and we're going to go to a sudden death. First takedown wins. So you take
Pretty simple.
Pretty simple.
Yeah.
First takedown wins.
Wow.
And if we get past that point, and then we're going to go into positions where we give each wrestler an opportunity to be on top and on bottom, and see how they fare from that. And if one ends up holding the other, then they win. So we have multiple overtime.
So
periods.
you could have triple overtime.
Technically double overtime, but it does go through 3 periods because
Yeah.
we're giving, in the second overtime period, we're giving each wrestler a chance to be on top and to be on bottom. So that gives it an even opportunity to see who could do what from each position.
Unlike the NFL, if you score a touchdown, the game's over.
Correct.
Yeah, that's a not very good rule. Anyway.
Wrestling overtime is very exciting though. You get to that sudden death, and you could have survived a whole match not being a great wrestler on your feet, but you need to be it when that opportunity hits.
Wow.
So a big thing in wrestling is making weight. At least from my limited experience, and you hear the stories of kids getting into the sauna with the sweats on, and what goes on in making weight? Heather, tell us because you mentioned 106 and 113.
Yeah.
I mean, have you ever had a problem making that weight? Have you ever come in at 114 or something like that?
So I'm usually walking around like 105, so way under.
Okay.
But from like cutting for like girls tournaments, I usually eat clean like 2 weeks before weigh-ins.
Now, when you're talking eating clean, because you got to remember, Rick and myself, we're 2 old guys, and we have no idea what eating clean is. Now, if you're talking steaks and hot dogs and stuff like that, we can understand, but what's eating clean?
So eating clean for me is probably cutting out like sugars and carbs, drinking water, and about if I'm too over the week of, start limiting proportions. And then if I'm over like the night before weigh-ins, I'll usually run and sweat it off to be able to make weight.
How often do you weigh in? How often do you have your wrestlers weigh in? I mean, that's an important thing.
We regulate their weight every day before and after practice, but they're only going to have official weigh-ins right before meets.
Okay.
So they only have to be at weight right when that meet starts.
But you're constantly monitoring your
Yes,
weight.
and the IHSA has a great program as far as making sure kids aren't doing things that are unsafe, where we have to monitor to make sure that they aren't losing more than 1.5 pounds a week. So that's why Coach Crull and I have to stay on top of how much they're losing, because if they come in and they were 120 last week and they come in at 116 this week, that's almost a 4% drop. So that's not legal, and we have to make sure that we stay on top of it, making sure they maintain their weight, even if doing it more healthily. And that's what, like Heather said, that's the big thing about it's hard with high school kids.
Yeah.
Getting them to eat clean,
Well,
they're like, well, I had 4 slices of pizza last night. I'm like, well, you know what? If you had that much portion of something that was not just a carb circle covered in dairy,
Yeah.
you might have made weight.
So there's got to be a whole lot of education as far as eating properly, because we are in a fast food world. It's easy to stop at McDonald's, and kids, basically you try to get them to cut that out of their diet.
Yeah.
So that sounds like it's a big thing or a big thing with wrestling is teaching them how to do that. So what? Another question for you, Heather, is, all right. So you mentioned 105. Again, I don't know a lot about wrestling. When you weigh in on the day of a match, is there any leeway? Do they give you 106 and a quarter, or is it you got to be 106 and that's it?
So before January 1st, you have to be at or under, and then after you get a 2-pound allowance.
Okay, so there is some leeway. What's the difference between before and after?
It's called a growth allowance. They assume that these
Okay.
kids are growing over the years,
All
so
right.
we shouldn't
Okay,
let them
that makes sense.
just make sure they're staying at the same weight all year long. So yeah, 106.0 up until December 31st, and then she can go on up to 108 after that.
Okay, and still wrestling the 106.
Yeah, we still call it the 106, but we get 2 pounds. And then there's some other things throughout the year. If you're wrestling back-to-back days, they give you an extra pound, things like that. If your school was canceled that day, you get an extra pound. So
Yeah, hydration
Really?
was probably another big part of that. Keeping the liquid going in here, because my limited experience is people would sweat it all out, and then get weighed in. I don't know how that goes now. So Cory, tell us. All right, I'm ignorant. Again, I've said that a couple times here. On a regular match is what? 3 periods of how long? Tell us about what goes on in a regular match.
So a regular match is going to be 3 2-minute periods in the high school level. Overtimes can go on beyond that. So a match is generally going to start both wrestlers from neutral, the standing position, facing
Okay.
each other. And that's when they're going to be working for the takedown, like we said, where you can score 2 points. Once they're down, they continue wrestling from there. The bottom wrestlers trying to get out or reverse the position, and the top wrestlers trying to turn them over to their back towards a pin. So after that 2-minute period's expired, if wrestling's still going on, depending on where the meet is, they're either going to flip a coin, or we've determined before the match who's getting the choice of whether they want to go to the top position, the bottom position, neutral, or defer the choice to the other wrestler.
Are there any timeouts or anything like that in wrestling?
Only for blood.
Okay. All right,
So
so
no.
they will allow you to.
We have blood and injury times. So
Now
if
we're
you're-
talking.
Yeah, that's how you know wrestling's a pretty extreme sport.
Yeah.
You don't get a chance to come over and talk to your coach, discuss what happened in that first period. The ref says top, bottom, neutral, or defer, and they're expecting you to be in your spot. We do have limits for blood and injury, and for head, neck, and cervical injuries,
Right.
especially. But then, after the second period, one wrestler will get the choice: top, bottom, neutral, or defer. We'll wrestle through the second period, and we'll make it to the third. Then the other wrestler will get choice. So.
Okay.
Now, Heather, when you're wrestling, do you ever listen to your coaches?
Yes.
Oh, you do? Okay. All right.
One's her dad, so that follows her home. So.
That's not a problem, right? Having your dad as a coach? No. Okay.
All right, yeah, it's good. Now, another question here is when I've been to some of the meets, there's 2 chairs, coaches' chairs, I assume. Now, what's your restrictions as a coach? Are you allowed to go around the mat, or do you have to stay in your coach's box?
So there's actually I think at one point the HSA wanted us to put a line down on the mat that was a couple feet in front of the chairs. But in general, most coaches are pretty good about staying in it, so it's not that well regulated. But yes, you do need to stay in your corner. 2 coaches per corner. When we get some of these bigger tournaments and you see some of these bigger schools, they have about 8 people in the corner. But we're pretty sticklers for 2 coaches in the corner. You can't circle the mat. Now, something that's interesting, I've always found interesting, if there's a wrestler who's hearing impaired or something like that, the coach does then get the opportunity to circle the mat, so they can continue to maintain eye contact with them. But as far as if we have wrestlers who have their vision and hearing, we stay in our corners and we try to yell. They hear probably their parents in the stands a lot louder than us, but we yell anyway. They put those chairs over there for decoration, though. I don't know anyone who sits in them.
So is there more than one match going on at a time, or is it just one match going on?
Depends.
Okay.
So next Wednesday when we have our home meet against Franklin County, there will be one match going on. There will be center mat in our gym, and that's all that's going on. We'll start at a certain weight class depending on a random draw, and we'll go in order through the weight classes, and then so we've done them all. And each wrestler only wrestles one time on the night of a dual meet.
Okay.
But on the following Saturday, we're wrestling Union City, and they call that a Super 6. There'll be 6 teams there. There'll be 4 mats going, And so there'll be 4 different matches going on. Now, all our wrestlers will only be going one at a time through it. We'll be wrestling a duel against them and making our way through it like a round robin. So yes, when you get to a Saturday tournament where you get to sectionals and semi-state, it's pure chaos. It's very loud.
So there's a lot of matches going on at one time.
Yeah.
So do all the individual wrestlers, will they only wrestle one match per day? Like you mentioned at Super 6, all right?
At Super 6, they'll wrestle 5 times.
Oh, they will, okay.
Yeah, they'll wrestle 5 times.
Wow.
The IHSA limits us to 5 matches per day, and that's a majority of our matches are like that. We wrestle 4 duels throughout the year, and then the rest are going to be tournaments.
Now, when you mentioned 4 duels, had the IHSA, I believe, dictated that you have to have so many duels in so many multiple team meets? Is that?
It was that teams were going away from duels almost completely. We were scheduling, a duel for senior night, and we were wrestling our tournaments because why not get 5 matches in instead of 1? But the IHSA really wanted to cultivate that crosstown rivalries and county experiences, so they wanted to implement duels, and so they did. They upped the number of duels we had to have, so we would have those matches where we have a one-on-one night against Lincoln and Hagerstown and Centerville, just so parents can get that feeling of that we had probably when we were younger, of the crosstown rivalries,
Yep.
things like that.
So for the uneducated that are watching this right now, a dual meet is one team versus another team, just like a football game. You got one team versus the other. In the Super 6, obviously, 6 teams at one meet. I would ask about the scoring system in a Super 6, but it's probably, we're not mathematicians around here, so
Super 6s aren't too bad. That's just, you're going to go a record. If one team finishes 5-0 that day, obviously they're champion, and it can come down to common losses, things like that. Now, when you get into our sectionals, or we even go to one called Spark Classic, which is an individual tournament, which is going to be individually bracketed, just like our IHSA sectional is. That's where you get into mathematician type stuff, where this wrestler pinned at 106 while the Hagerstown wrestler just scored a points decision, so that's worth this and that, and
it gets a little more complicated.
yes, it's
That's beyond our scope right here. So let me also ask, in sectionals, because you have sectionals, regionals, and you go right up to state tournament. By the way, they do a great job at the state tournament. I've seen those on TV before. That's a fabulous event. I don't know what's going on, but it's fun to watch on TV.
It's an experience. It very, very much is.
So when you get into your sectional, can the wrestlers, can they move on as a team or as individuals or both, or how does that work?
No, just as individuals. The way wrestling, there used to be a sectional champion would then go on to wrestle a team regional.
Yeah.
But they've kind of changed how it does. There is still a team state, but it takes place in the middle of the season, and it's based off your last year's finishings. There's a lot of metrics that go into that too, returning wrestlers, furthest advancements. But that happens early in January. Team state up in Fort Wayne, and there's classes and just how that all happens. There are team sectional champions, but that doesn't mean anything except for, it means a lot to win sectional, but the whole team doesn't then advance. So you'll see, actually, team could win sectionals, but a different team wins regionals because they have more wrestlers that have advanced.
Is there a class system like 1A, 2A, 3A like you have in wrestling? It's like
wrestling is classless.
Yeah, classless. All right, so you're wrestling, and probably in your sectional, I guess Richmond might be there.
Richmond,
school.
Newcastle are in our sectional. Our semi-state, I think, is the toughest one in the state. Cathedral, Warren Central, Carmel. Those types of schools are all in our semi-state.
So let me ask, do we have any potential to move on down the line, sectionals, regionals, and down the line?
Absolutely.
All right, so...
so Jackson Ramsey was a semi-state qualifier as a freshman. So,
wow, okay.
yeah, I mean, you can already tell from that credential our expectations of him. But I think especially all of our upperclassmen have that potential. Calvin Berhalter is going to be a phenomenal heavyweight. Clayton Gray, who's missed some time, is a phenomenal athlete. But even at our freshman level, I have high expectations for Heather. I know people see that boys division thing. That's not a deterrent for us. I think Heather's got a good chance to advance pretty far into the state tournament series.
Well, I think that 106, the lightweight, is a great equalizer for everybody, because I don't think gender was going to have a lot to do with anything with that. I mean, that's just being smart wrestling hard and so forth in that lightweight. It's quickness and stuff like that, which I think, to me, the girls might have a bit of an advantage on that, because usually, as a freshman, they're pretty dang quick. And so I think Heather's going to have a good year this year.
I encourage you guys to come out and see us. You'll be blown away. Heather's an incredibly technical wrestler, and no one outworks her.
Well, that you're only a freshman, okay? So obviously you've got 3 more years after this. So your weight class, will that naturally just probably increase a little bit as you get older and mature and fill out a little bit?
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
Yeah, we don't know that yet, obviously. It
Yeah.
depends what your
Completely-
eating schedule is, I guess, right?
You do find that seniors that make it at 106 as a senior are very successful, because not very many kids can stay at 106 for
Yeah.
4 years.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think most teams probably struggle at that 106. Find them 106.
I think that this might be the second time in 8 years of coaching I've had a 106.
I see. So I feel good about this.
Well, so that gets me to my next question: is weight classes. There's 14 weight classes, and when I see wrestling meets, there's a lot of forfeits in there sometimes. So, is there a difficulty for getting the wrestlers in that weight class?
Absolutely. Like I said earlier, we have 17 wrestlers, and we aren't going to fill all 14 weight classes. We've got 3 wrestlers at 152. We've got 2 wrestlers at heavyweight right now. So you try to move them up. You can wrestle the weight class you qualify for and one above it, but that only matters as much as that one above it's not already taken. So we do struggle with that. Even when we have the numbers out this year, we're going to give up 3 weight classes, I think, at this point. I'd happily give up 3. There's been years I've given up 7. It is tough.
Well, three's not bad.
No.
Really, because I've seen.
Well, if you have 14 weight classes, you definitely need to have at least 7 wrestlers to have a chance to win the match, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So what happens if both teams, let's say you're in a dual meet and both teams don't have anybody for that weight?
We'll have a double forfeit. No one
Just
scores.
kind of a wash.
Yeah, but it'll be a
type of
wash
thing.
on that. But
All right, so that's an appeal. If you're sitting around on the couch eating bonbons or playing video games, these guys right here can put you to work.
if you weigh 130 pounds, please call me.
They'll get you in one less bonbon or pizza slice. So, well, anyways, so I've learned a lot today.
Oh, I
Jay.
have
can
too.
tell you.
This has been a great episode. We've been going about 30 minutes.
Man, I never thought I'd be able to listen to you talk for 30 minutes.
Well,
So what's your schedule? You got to tell us your schedule here in the next week or two
Yeah.
so we can know.
So we're kicking off pretty heavy this next week. We haven't had a meet yet, so we start on Wednesday at home against Franklin County, and then on Thursday we'll have a double duel. So there will be 3 teams, and we will duel each of them at Lincoln with Lincoln and Wapahani. And then that's when those Saturdays start. It's just about every Saturday until mid-February. After that, we'll be at Union City the following Saturday. That 8th is home, 9th at Lincoln, 11th at Union City, and then the following weekend at Newcastle.
Okay, so you have a home meet on next Wednesday night.
Correct.
That's December 8th. What time does that start?
I'd have to check the schedule. We're generally around 6.
6 o'clock?
Yep.
And that is in the main gym, or what gym is
We
it?
like to use the auxiliary gym.
Auxiliary gym? Okay, so hey, go out and watch these guys. It'd be a lot of fun. I've learned a lot today. It's encouraged me. Maybe I ought to be there just to see what's going on and that type of thing.
Yeah.
Maybe Jerry, we can live stream one of these events at some point.
I'm thinking we should do that.
Yeah.
We want to check what our lighting is in the auxiliary gym, make sure that it's going to look so it doesn't look dark and dingy, even though it is in there.
Just let me know. I'll dress up a little bit.
There you go. Yeah. Well, the Knights of the Roundtable is sponsored by Farm Bureau Insurance agents Brian Maurer and Cory Baker. And so we appreciate Farm Bureau's insurance participation with us, trying to get the word out. We also appreciate Farm Bureau Insurance participation with the IHSA in all sports. So I think this is about a wrap.
Well, hey, this has been enlightening to me. I appreciate both of you being here. Heather, go get them. All right, that's what I'm going to tell you. I would love to see you move on to this. It used to be Bankers Life Fieldhouse. I don't know what it is.
Gamebridge Arena now.
Oh, okay,
Arena.
so we're cheering for you. Okay, we want you to go in there and take them down, okay? Or whatever I don't know what you say in wrestling, all right? But whatever that chant is, we'll have to learn it. And maybe we can get a cheer block at the
There we
wrestling
go.
meets.
We'll get
That's
cheer
a
block
really
at
good
wrestling meet.
cheer
We'd love
block.
to sell one out.
So I'm going to encourage all of you out here. Do they charge to get in just like we normally
Yeah,
charge?
it's gonna be just like all your.
So students are free.
Yep.
All right. So students, get out there and go cheer on these kids. They're your classmates. Go watch them. They put in a lot of work, and they're not just sitting around at these practices. There's a lot going on. So I would encourage you to be there, and it'd be a lot of fun. You know, especially if you can get a lot of people there to fill the gym. I'm sure the parents all go and that type of thing. So this has been great. I'm glad you guys could come this morning.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah.
We enjoyed it.
Well, this has been another edition of Knights of the Round Table, and for Rick Fletcher and our guest Heather Crull and Cory Baker, I'm Jerry Middleton, and it's been another good night.
I think that's going to be great.